As the year draws to an end, I think it's time to start looking at the year as a whole. This year's been an eventful one for anime, and I feel like now's a good time to start going over what I think are the top 10 best new anime of the year. I know that the year was chock full of sequels, and a lot of which concluded years of journey for some shows, so I've intentionally excluded those, and I'm talking about some of my favourite ones from this year. So without further ado, the top 10 best new anime of 2020, everyone. We'll start things off with Moriarty the Patriot. Honestly speaking, I didn't have high hopes for this one. That's not to be taken in a negative light, but as someone who's seen quite a lot of Sherlock Holmes anime, it just doesn't feel too special anymore. While none of them ended up being bad, and it takes an extraordinary amount of mishap to spend 5 minutes ranting about a show online, they were just out there. What could a perspective change to star the villain do? Well, a lot apparently. Midway through the season, Moriarty the Patriot has shot up to be one of my favourites this season. It may not be part of the big hype train that everyone's riding, nor is it something that I'd watch to feel goosebumps and that sort of thing, but the show's brimming with content that makes you think. I'm not going to pretend that this is some super complex big brain anime that would make you question the meaning of existence, but its themes make a lot of sense, especially given modern day context. I really like how it toys with the ideas of justice while putting us in the proper atmosphere for such thoughts. You've got to thank the art and voice acting departments for that. The show is still airing, but you should definitely check it out. It gives you food for thought and shows you what a good villain protagonist looks like. Next we go full throttle with God of High School. The much-awaited webtoon adaptation has been one of the highlights of the summer 2020 season. I'm not surprised that Jin Mori's quest to become the greatest fighter in Korea made its mark on the anime community. It didn't matter that it was in a season with tons of grand finales and big sequels. If there's anything to remember summer 2020 by in terms of just pure hype, a lot of anime fans will tell you it's probably God of High School. Nevertheless, the show's not without its flaws. As we've seen so far with the 3 Korean webtoon adaptations, Tower of God and Noblesse being the other 2, the adaptation styles have been a bit hit or miss. God of High School in particular got some flack for cutting out some key character development parts from the webtoon. While I think that the criticism that is nothing but fight after fight a bit overblown, I have to agree to a certain extent. Still, if you love fights, as well as stunning animation and visuals, God of High School could be just the show for you.
じゃあ、今日は楽しかった。ありがとう。またね、和也くん。
For the rom-com fans, you'll probably remember summer 2020 not for God of High School, but for Rent-A-Girlfriend. I haven't seen the fake girlfriend storyline in a while, so I don't blame anyone for thinking of Rent-A-Girlfriend as the second coming of Nisekoi. Unfortunately, Rent-A-Girlfriend never quite hit the mark as the series that it's supposedly a spiritual successor to. A lot of that falls onto our protagonist. Now, I don't know if it's just me, but it does seem that he's by far the most hated protagonist in a series with harem elements this season. Now, sharing a season with Kirito, that's saying something. Actually, we can extend that past the season and make it to the year, and you can throw Mami in there while you're at it. Now, that might sound a bit harsh, but I did sincerely enjoy Rent-A-Girlfriend in general. The characters may be controversial, but I enjoyed the comedy bits, and I don't think anyone's denying that the girls are pretty good. And as they say, in a show like this, it's not the harem protagonist that does the heavy lifting, but the girls. If they sell, the show sells, and it apparently did well enough to get a second season coming our way. Let's make it 3 in a row now for summer 22 with Decadence. So if God of High School is the mainstream shonen boys pick of the season, while Rent-A-Girlfriend is what rom-com fans remember it by, I think that it would be fair to give Decadence the crown for underappreciated hit of the season. What many people first brushed off as some sort of sci-fi Attack on Titan quickly found its footing and surged in popularity midway through the season. It's the season's example of not judging a book by its cover, as much of the content that made it capture the hearts of so many fans came out midway through its run. The plot may have seemed simple, but Decadence does have quite a lot of philosophical concepts that get explored. I'm positive that I'm not the only one who thought that the show ended up looking like a completely different one that first impressions might have given us even at 2 episodes in. Before I forget, the show did have a controversial ending, but I feel like it wrapped things up pretty nicely for an anime original. So if you're looking for a short one-course show to binge over a weekend and you're up for something that reminds you of Attack on Titan or Gurren Lagann, make sure to give Decadence a whirl.
この間のあれといい、やっぱり週一はどこか普通じゃない。
Speaking of endings, Gleipnir has a clusterfuck of an ending for its anime, but that doesn't pull it down so hard for me not to feature as one of the top new shows this 2020. Yes, Gleipnir went on some sort of anime original direction towards the end, leaving everyone confused, while Season 2 is nowhere in sight. But why is it here? Why is it in my top 10 list? Because after everything else, the show does well and hits the right beats for me. Having just come off enjoying Darwin's Game earlier this season, I was simply in the mood for more edgy death game shenanigans. While the former I loved, especially with the ensemble concept and the character designs, I won't deny that it would seem a bit generic for it to truly stand out. What isn't generic in terms of setup and characters is Gleipnir. I praised Pine Jam for powering through the uncertainties of the spring 2020 season and giving us an A+ product in terms of animation and fights, but Gleipnir also finds its strength in something else. Its characters. Its characters are an underrated aspect of the show, and you can't really quantify chemistry, but the main duo of Shuichi and Claire, as well as the antagonist Elena, just work so well together. The side characters are no slouch either, being interesting in their own ways and showing varying degrees of agency. A weird, bizarro ending wouldn't completely pull a good show down, and Gleipnir remains one of my favourites of this year. As we reach the halfway mark of this list, let me ask you a question. How many of these shows can you watch legally? It sure must be a pain to go to Crunchyroll or Funimation then run into the dreaded region lock message. Thus, it's with great joy that I bring to you a cheap and easy solution to that. ExpressVPN to the rescue. With ExpressVPN's amazing service, you can connect to so many different proxy servers from all over the world. That way, you can access anime just like the more privileged people in the world. For its cheap subscription price, you get some top-notch quality service and the fastest speeds available for any VPN software in town. Once you boot the program up, just pick your server and connect. It really is as simple as that. Now, movies like Your Name and Spirited Away are just a click away. So say goodbye to those guilt-ridden days where you had to overcome regional locks through dubious means, let's just put it like that. Here, let me help you out by giving you 3 months free, and all you have to do is click the link below, or just go to expressvpn.com/VinnyTube. Say goodbye to all those problems with some quick clicks and start enjoying the internet to the fullest. Yes, I intentionally put two dark series next to each other. So next we take a look at Dorohedoro. That's a handful of a title, yes. And no, Dorohedoro isn't an edgy death game anime. Gleipnir may be dark and edgy, but I still find it to know when to reel itself in and step back before letting you see that at its very core, it's still a boy meets girl series, but with morally ambiguous characters. But that's not the case for Dorohedoro. Dorohedoro relishes in the violence, the black comedy, and that sort of stuff. No wonder it didn't become a mainstream title at the start of the year. Then again, it's probably a saving grace, because if it did indeed become a mainstream title, we'd be seeing all those controversies online. I mean, it's the same season as Interspecies Reviewers, and I don't think that anything that season could top the Funimation fiasco with that show. But can you imagine a world with a mainstream Dorohedoro with a series of controversies of its own airing alongside Interspecies Reviewers? However, don't let all the talk of the violence and controversial elements distract you from the fact that Dorohedoro is quite honestly a very well-made adaptation. I mean, the CGI may be jarring, but I truly felt that the anime captured a lot of things that made the manga such a hit. The setting and the atmosphere is there, and the characters are just amazing, which is a good thing, because at its core, Dorohedoro is a character-driven show. It's truly worthy of a watch, and while I don't see a sequel coming anytime soon, I'd still recommend it to anyone who enjoys the darker side of anime. Spring 2020 saw the start of the Korean wave in anime, with Tower of God leading the charge. There's no question that when pioneering a new thing, you put your best foot forward and try to make an impact off the bat. So of course, when the idea of webtoons being adapted into anime became a thing, the immediate candidate was probably the biggest webtoon out there, Tower of God. The result was actually pretty good. I think that a number of people were disappointed because it's the Tower of God, and that they had high hopes after being so enamored with the webtoon. But as someone who came in and started watching the show knowing the source material's content, I think that the series does well enough for itself. It's a dialogue-heavy adventure series featuring some intriguing characters and a vivid world for us to explore. It also features a unique art style that would or wouldn't be a big pull for fans of webtoons. The unfortunate part is that what we saw of Tower of God is basically just the prologue. The anime just ended there without a season 2 in sight. Come on, it's like ending Hunter x Hunter right when the Hunter exams end. All that being said, for me, Tower of God is among the best webtoon adaptations. The third best anime of 2020? Well, it's a toss-up for me for second and third place, but for now, I'll give it to Id Invaded. I've always been quite high on psychological anime, so it wasn't any surprise that I watched Id Invaded. Being such a fan of psychology myself, I think that it's one of the great topics that can be discussed in so many ways through different forms of media. Heck, I liked Id Invaded so much that I put it as my top anime at the start of the year. But personal biases aside, I do think that Id Invaded is legitimately a great show that can appeal to a wide range of anime fans. It's just a solid mystery anime after all. In a way, it really reminds me of an alternative Psycho Pass, but with a more scientific focus instead of a more moralistic one. It's a thriller that keeps you wanting more, and it's got no shortage of action and its own special identity. It's the end of the year, and I still think that it's a grossly underappreciated anime. Seeing as how big Psycho Pass has become, I feel a bit bad that Id Invaded never really got to that point. Maybe it's just a change in the times. After all, many things can change in a decade. Maybe it's because the winter 2020 has the unfortunate reputation of being a weak season. Either way, I strongly recommend watching this show to anyone looking for a good, suspenseful watch. Second place goes to Jujutsu Kaisen. With all the buzz that's taken over the internet over this show for the past few weeks, how could it not be near the top of the list? It's really amazing because at first glance, Jujutsu Kaisen may seem like a show filling everyone's annual quota of Shonen Jump series featuring supernatural powers, demons and exorcists and whatever equivalents to those a show may have. Last year it was Demon Slayer. A few years before that, it was Black Clover. However, Jujutsu Kaisen just does so many things right as far as its target market is concerned. For a show like this, I think that the most important keys are simply having a good hook, a decent and likable cast, some twists and turns regarding certain characters, and great fights that showcase the powers that the creator came up with. Let's just say that Jujutsu Kaisen passes everything with flying colors. It's yet to get a Demon Slayer episode 19 moment, but the recent one featuring one of its most popular characters came pretty damn close with how it blew up the internet. However, for all the excitement surrounding it, only finds its way to number 2 on my list. It's not that I don't buy the hype or anything. I mean, I love it, and I really like how there's this big new thing that everyone's talking about again, the likes that I've not seen since Demon Slayer. However, there's just one new anime that I think I like better. What is the show that I consider to be the best of 2020, you ask? Great Pretender, of course. Don't worry, this surprised me even. When I first looked up the series, I didn't expect to find myself becoming such a big fan of Great Pretender. But I did in the end. I ended up being so entertained following con artists and their mishaps all over the world. Is it because of the unique premise, or is it because it looked like some kind of spiritual successor to things I enjoyed like Bacano or Better Call Saul? Probably a mixture of both, I think, actually. Great Pretender is a breath of fresh air that would look like a Western TV series had it not been done in an anime format. Saying that it's unique isn't enough, and it's a completely different direction from what we've all come to expect from the medium. Now, I'm not part of the camp where unique automatically equals good, and I personally love my anime tropes, but come on, credit where credit's due. Pretty much everything in Great Pretender is amazing. The visuals are stunning, the plot progresses at a great pace, and it manages to keep me entertained all the way to the very end. I'm sure that it'll do the job for you too. It's a super fun show, so check it out. I just find it unfortunate that Great Pretender never really became a big deal. It's just a fun and artistic show full of soul and promise. Do I blame Netflix jail for this? Well, partly, but I still consider it the top pick for the best new title in 2020, and I don't see my opinion changing anytime soon. So what does your top 10 list look like? I'd love to know, so let's chat a bit about it in the comments section. As we look forward to 2021, we'll always remember 2020 to be an eventful year, both in expected and unexpected ways. Whether the momentum from 2020 will carry on to make an even better 2021 is yet to be seen, but I've always been a believer in the idea that anime just keeps getting better instead of the best ones being in the good old days. So I've got a positive outlook for this statement. As usual, I encourage you to like and share the video with your friends. Who knows? Maybe they can even like it and subscribe to the channel and join the family. Don't forget to check out our sponsors of this video, ExpressVPN. Bypass all those pesky region locks and even browse sites not available in your region with the ever-trusty ExpressVPN now. Let's keep our spirits up and march to a hopefully better 2021 together. See ya!